When Chioma married the love of her life, Babatunde, she was the happiest girl on earth. A mysterious maid, Zuri starts whispering things into her ears which lead her to Chioma Adesanya on the streets of Lagos. Like any regular working class woman, Chioma had perfected the art of blending in. Yet, her father, Mr. Obina Adesanya, was one of the wealthiest men in Nigeria. She grew up in a house where wealth was the air they breathed. But her father trained her differently. And Chioma embraced that life, content with living quietly. She attended private schools, rode in normal cars, and even worked part-time. One day after university, Mr. Adesanya called her into his study. "It's time," he said, in that deep, firm voice. "You're joining the Adesanya group." Chioma stood. They're in her jeans and sneakers. Want more real-life experiences by working as an intern. "Chioma, what are you saying?" But Chioma wasn't backing down. "Yes, I know, but please let me work like a regular staff. I want to understand how people live for real. I don't want people looking at me like some spoiled rich girl who got handed everything." Obina Adesanya let out a long sigh. And that's how Chioma Adesanya became an intern in her father's company. Regular salary, ordinary desk. No one knew. She was the heir to the Adesanya empire except Babatunde Okafor. Babatunde was the kind of man that turned heads. People in the office whispered his name often, but Babatunde wasn't proud or arrogant. On Chioma's first day, she fumbled with her login. "Hello," Babatunde said, walking up to her with a small smile. "I know it's nerve-wracking, but you've got this." Chioma laughed nervously. Babatunde helped her learn basic office skills, and slowly a bond formed. They shared in whispers and eventually quiet dates. After they had dated for a few months, Chioma decided to come clean. One evening, she invited Babatunde out. Not one of those flashy places, just a quiet spot by the lagoon. When Babatunde arrived, Chioma's heart was pounding. "I have something to tell you," she began, voice shaking. Babatunde leaned in, concerned. "What is it?" Chioma swallowed hard. "My father owns a Adesanya group." For a second, Babatunde said nothing. But then, Babatunde smiled, reached for her hand across the table. "That doesn't change anything," he said quietly. "I love you still." Chioma let out a slow breath. Tears pricked her eyes. A few months later, Babatunde proposed on the Adesanya family yacht. She said yes. When Chioma told her father, Mr. Obina Adesanya wasn't exactly thrilled. "Bring him to me," he said simply. Babatunde showed up at the Adesanya estate in a sharp black suit. After the visit, Obina called Chioma. "There's something about him," he said slowly. "Something about him that upsets me." Chioma sighed. "Daddy, we started dating before he knew who I was." He stared at her for a long time. "He must live with you after marriage." Chioma's eyes widened. "But Daddy, I don't need a shadow in my home. I want to spend time alone with my husband. That is my condition, Chioma." Chioma argued, but it was no use. Months later, Chioma and Babatunde got married. It's a wedding gift. Her father handed over the position to Chioma. As they moved into the new mansion, Chioma and Babatunde seemed like the dream couple. Quietly, without a fuss, Zuri moved in as the housekeeper. Weeks after their wedding, Chioma Adesanya could not have imagined what was coming. She and Babatunde shared quiet dinners, sometimes laughing. But by the third month, Chioma noticed something wasn't right. Her period kept showing up like an uninvited guest. Chioma sat quietly one evening in the living room, dressed in a simple kaftan. The mansion felt too big, too empty. She didn't notice her at first until Zuri spoke. "Madam Chioma." Chioma turned her face slowly, eyes tired. Zuri stood with both hands clasped in front of her. Chioma blinked. Zuri lowered her gaze. "There's something happening in this house under your nose." Chioma frowned now, voice flat. Zuri sighed like someone carrying a burden. Chioma shot up from the couch, heart beating like a drum. "You trying to tell me something?" Zuri nodded her head slowly, voice steady. "I will not say what my eyes and ears did not witness. But I will not say what my eyes and ears did not witness." Chioma felt her stomach twist. She grabbed her phone and called her father on the spot. "I want her out of my home," Obina's voice came across calm. "If you sent her away, Chioma, be sure of what you're doing." Chioma bit her lip. As soon as Babatunde returned from work, she confronted him. "Zuri said some rubbish today," Chioma said, folding her arms. "What kind of rubbish?" Babatunde asked, pulling off his tie. "That I should be careful. That things are happening in this house." Chioma shook her head. The company, the house, the tension, everything had shifted. From that night, Babatunde changed. He snapped one morning while she asked him about her new staff. "If you're bored, go around the house one day. Clean shoes properly. Get useful with your life for once, and stop meddling in my marriage." Zuri kept her eyes low. Her quietness only added more tension to the house. One particular evening, Chioma was reading in the lounge. Babatunde came in, heading to the kitchen to grab water. Zuri continued mopping. Then she turned slowly. She said. Babatunde turned, irritation sharp in his eyes. Zuri's voice was low but clear. "I know about your plans." Babatunde blinked. Zuri didn't look afraid. "I know about Hilton's Hotel Room 26. The words dropped like a stone in the kitchen. Babatunde's face darkened. Zuri shook her head slowly. "Whatever you're playing, stop now." Babatunde's voice shook the walls. He stormed out of the kitchen, pacing back and forth in his private office. How did Zuri know? Who exactly is this Zuri girl? That night, Babatunde lay beside Chioma in bed, but his eyes stared at the ceiling. Sleep refused to come. By midnight, he got up quietly, tiptoed out of the room, and locked himself inside his private office. He grabbed his phone and dialed. "Quickly, yes," he whispered, voice sharp. "We can't delay anymore." Babatunde sat there in his office chair, running his hand down his face. Chioma noticed the shift in the air. Zuri approached her again. Her wristwatch shining under the sun as she stood beside the car. She had just started the car engine when she noticed Zuri standing by the driver's window, wringing her hands. "I'm not offended," Zuri said quietly, eyes low. "This is for you to sign. Check it well before you trust anything around you." Chioma gave her an irritated look, glancing at the time on her watch. "I don't have time for this rubbish. Make sure dinner's ready before I get back." Without waiting for Zuri's reply, she drove off. That week, Babatunde came home carrying a thick file. Chioma was lounging in the living room in a silk robe when he walked in and dropped the file on the table. "Babe," he said, voice smooth like butter. "If we invest 1 billion ... Chioma picked up the file and stared. Zuri's words from that morning whispered back into her mind. Her hands trembled. "This is legit?" Chioma asked slowly. "I wouldn't lie to you," Babatunde replied, flashing his signature charming smile. Chioma pressed her lips together. Babatunde frowned slightly but then relaxed. "All right, babe." The next morning, Chioma visited her doctor. "You're okay, Mrs. Adesanya," he said gently. "Why can't I get pregnant?" Chioma asked, voice tight. "Maybe later this year," the doctor gave a small, uncertain shrug. But patience was not what Chioma wanted. That same day, she sat in her car in the hospital parking lot, gripping the steering wheel. When she returned home, Zuri was mopping the living room floor, her head bowed. As Chioma entered, Zuri straightened up, eyes already glistening with quiet resolve. "Madame," Zuri said softly, "I know you just came from the hospital. This is not your fault." Chioma's heart clenched. Zuri looked her in the eyes. "You have refused to see the truth. Check the orange pills your husband takes." She shook her head calmly. "I do not touch what isn't mine." Chioma walked past her. Was Zuri mad? Sitting on her bed, Chioma whispered, "The orange pills." The very next morning, after Babatunde left for work, Chioma quietly entered the bathroom, opened the cabinet, and picked up the pill bottle. Her hands shook as she placed it in her bag. She drove to a private lab across the city, handed the bottle to a technician. The entire day, her eyes followed Babatunde like a detective. Memories played back in her head. Babatunde asking her to promote his cousin every time she had doubts. Midnight office hours. Chioma muttered bitterly one night, hugging her pillow. She followed him quietly to work one night. She heard him, whispering and laughing with someone. There was softness in his voice, like a man in love. He never spoke to her that way anymore. Babatunde, what is this? Give me more time, babe, Chioma said sweetly. One evening, Babatunde returned with a set of new gowns. Pick these for you, he said proudly. Chioma smiled thinly. The very next evening, Babatunde's patience snapped. Chioma, he said sharply, dropping the crypto file on the table. Sign this thing now. The deadline is almost over. Chioma stood her ground. I need to review all aspects of this deal first, she said firmly. 1 billion naira is no small money to toss for ultimate power. Babatunde's eyes flared. Without an answer, he grabbed his car keys and left. Chioma sat on the bed in her pajamas, heart pounding. Her head was spinning when Zuri entered as quietly as a breeze. Madam, she said in a voice that sent chills down Chioma's spine. I know you're planning to go on a vacation with him. You will not return alive. Chioma's hands clutched the bedsheet. What do you mean this time? What are you saying, Zuri? I said what I said, Zuri replied, voice steady. Chioma felt fear crawl up her throat. Zuri stepped closer. If you want answers, follow your husband tonight. Without thinking twice, Chioma jumped up, grabbed her car keys. She slipped into her slippers, rushing downstairs. Outside, the night air felt thick. She followed Babatunde's car from a safe distance, past the office, past his friend's place, into an area Chioma didn't recognize. Far from his usual circles, Babatunde pulled into a gated compound. Chioma parked at a distance, barefoot. She walked quietly up to the side of the house. Who's living here? She whispered to herself. Chioma's heart pounded as she sneaked through the garden. Her head swirled with too many thoughts at once. Maybe Babatunde had a side hustle. Then again, what if Zuri had been right all along? She moved closer to the house, every muscle in her body tight like a stretched rope. From the side of the house, she spotted a dimly lit room. Chioma leaned closer, heart thudding like a drum. I'm tired of being the side piece, one voice said bitterly. Chioma's eyes widened. The voice sounded familiar. Her ears stretched as if trying to catch weak village network. Then another voice responded. Once she signs the deal, we'll disappear. Chioma covered her mouth, her stomach churning. Babatunde continued, his voice gentle in a way she hadn't heard in months. Chioma bit down on her own tongue to stop from crying out loud. She saw the man's face through the window. Slots Babatunde's so-called cousin. He smiled at her like family. She listened as Babatunde and his cousin plotted. Her hands trembled. When it felt like an eternity, Chioma forced her body to move. She ran to her car, climbed in, locked the doors, and sped home. When she got home, Chioma entered her room, locked the door, and collapsed to the floor. Madame, are you okay? Zuri asked. From outside. But Chioma couldn't answer. Later, when she had no more tears left to cry, Chioma stood up on shaky legs and walked to her home office. Draft a divorce paper now, she said in a voice so broken it didn't sound like hers. The lawyer called back. Ma, he said, that document your husband forced you to sign has already been transferred. Chioma couldn't take it anymore. She called her father Babatunde, she whispered. Okay, was all he said. That night, Chioma lay in bed, eyes wide. Open Babatunde returned home, slipping into bed beside her. He didn't know she knew. Zuri. Came Mr. Chioma Adesanya, police trucks behind him. The living room was suddenly full. Babatunde looked confused. Chioma came downstairs slowly, holding the divorce papers in her hand. Her eyes didn't blink. She handed him the papers calmly. I am no longer married to you. Babatunde's face contorted in confusion and panic. All lies and deceit, Chioma said clearly. I know everything about the crypto deal, about your special cousin. Babatunde tried to speak, but Chioma's voice broke. Through him, Mr. Obina Adesanya's voice boomed. "Young man, sign that paper." With shaking hands. Babatunde picked up the pen. His signature. His signature scratched across the paper like a guilty confession. As soon as he finished, Mr. Adesanya pointed towards him. "Officers." They grabbed Babatunde by the arms as he begged, "Please, Chioma, I can explain." The marriage Chioma had believed in came crashing down after the police. After the police took Babatunde away, Chioma collapsed into tears. Her legs gave out right there in the middle of the living room. Her father, Mr. Obina Adesanya, stepped forward. He whispered into her, hair holding her like she was 5 again. "It felt like an eternity," Chioma cried. Mr. Adesanya took her trembling hands and knelt before her. "Daddy, I'm sorry," she said, voice raw. Mr. Adesanya shook his head. Chioma turned and saw Zuri walking into the living room, dragging her small travel bag. But Zuri wasn't in a hurry. She was smiling, a quiet, peaceful smile. "Chioma, are you going somewhere?" Zuri nodded. Chioma's chest tightened. "Please stay," she said. She turned to her father. Mr. Adesanya only smiled. Gently, "Zuri comes and goes when she likes." Zuri set down her bags briefly, giving Chioma a small hug. "I will keep in touch," she said simply, voice soft as always. And with that, Zuri picked up her bags again and walked out the front door. Babatunde was charged to court. Could not stop talking. Babatunde had siphoned millions from Chioma's company and with his so-called cousin. The moment news of Babatunde's arrest hit the airwaves, it made headlines. Chioma sat in the courtroom dressed in a deep green ankara. Weeks after the trial, Chioma returned to work. As she walked through the glass doors of Adesanya Group headquarters, all eyes turned. People whispered behind their hands. The marriage. Scandal, but Chioma didn't flinch. She walked toward her office. She took a deep breath as she sat down behind her desk once again, ready to pick up the pieces. From the large office window, watching the city breathe below, Chioma smiled faintly. "If love comes knocking again," she whispered to herself. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section till I bring another intriguing story.